So we have Grace Kim here. Grace, I'm going to introduce you, and then once I'm done, you can share your screen. I'm also admiring the posters behind you. So Grace Kim is an award-winning architect and co-founder of Schemata Workshop, a full-services architecture firm located in Seattle, Washington. Her projects focus on building community, social equity, and sustainability. Grace is also a co-founder of a 9-household co-housing community that was self-developed as a limited equity rental model. The 5-story building occupies a 4,500 square foot lot in a very urban neighborhood called Capitol Hill. Grace serves on the Seattle Planning Commission and is on the board of directors for the Housing Development Consortium, a regional advocacy organization for the affordable housing industry. Grace often speaks on panels about co-housing and affordability and is leading the co-housing movement in North America. I've asked Grace here because she's a leading expert on co-housing in the US, and I'm so glad that she was able to join us today. Thanks, Grace. I know many of our students and faculty are looking forward to hearing from you, and I know many of them have seen your TED Talk presentation. So if you want to go ahead now, that would be great.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. So I will just kind of launch into the talk given the time, but wanted to start off talking about sort of the social cohesion and the connectedness that we have, that we experience in co-housing. But before that, I just want to give a quick shout out for my my teammates. This is our office. We're a 14-person firm, and as Victoria mentioned, very much focused on racial and social equity. We are a women and minority-owned business, and happy to work with this crew. Our mission is to empower communities through architecture. So that's not just our marketing tagline, but it's actually the way that we actually conduct our business and our design approach. So this phrase has come up so much in the last 2 months, social distancing. And I wish that this phrase had never been coined. I think it's really important during this health crisis to think about physical distancing. And that's, very evident and important in terms of trying to sort of keep the pandemic at bay. But it's really ever more important during this time to be socially connected. So I just wanted to share a couple of examples from our community before I share a little bit more broadly about co-housing and how this impacts our social cohesion. So when we started out the pandemic in early March, we quickly stopped our meal program and went straight to Zoom. And we were meeting twice a week on Zoom, trying to just talk about like what our fears were, how we're managing the stress of all of this, and just sharing information so that we weren't getting this and freaked out, that we're kind of managing those anxieties and helping each other cope. And 2.5 months in, we're zoomed out. We have gone to weekly meetings. We're still trying to manage our building and manage ourselves and maintain contact. And so we've tried to do as much as we can in person because of the physical structure of building. We're able to use our courtyard, and I'll share a little bit more about that, but to celebrate birthdays, to play bingo, to do whatever we can outdoors so that we can stay connected. We have a rooftop farm, and that has been, you can see on the right-hand side, it's been growing quite aggressively and happily with the many hands of all of our neighbors. And then you can see on the left-hand side, the little hands of our neighbors distributing radishes and other produce to our individual doors. We've just tried to find whatever ways that we can be together while staying apart, whether it's exercising together in the courtyard, or in the case of this photo on the right, that's me in the red dress on the top celebrating our wedding anniversary. Meanwhile, another household doing a home improvement project right below, and then another couple kind of having an end of the day catch up chat. So trying to stay connected and be together and just hearing the sounds of each other in our daily lives has been a really great way to combat loneliness during this physically distant time. And this was not a topic, this is the whole issue of social isolation has been a major topic in the news prior to COVID, right? Prior to all of the required and suggested closures and shutdowns, isolation was another global pandemic. The whole idea of loneliness and social isolation causing increased risks of health issues and premature death has been in the news. And in 2015, a researcher from Brigham Young University put out a really great report looking at a lot of other studies that had been done. And this is a slide from Susan Pinker's TED Talk. But she listed the things that you could do to, on the left-hand side, the things that you could do to help increase longevity of life. And you can see that, you know, while the usual things are listed, you know, quit smoking, quit drinking, you know, exercise more, reduce your weight, and manage your high blood pressure, the top two things that people could do to increase their longevity of life were to be socially integrated and have close relationships. The opposite of being socially isolated, right? So from that standpoint, I don't know that there's anybody doing this sort of research, but it would be great to have somebody studying the longevity of life of people living in co-housing compared to the general population. But I do think that there are lots of people, anecdotal evidence that have shown people are able to return home from nursing homes straight into their co-housing communities because they have the mutual support to be able to manage. And we all know that if you stay out of nursing homes, the rehab centers, the increased longevity of life is there, and this decline of people that move into those facilities. Okay, so I'm going to segue into kind of the work that we do and our attitude towards applied research, meaning that we're not academics, we're professionals that are doing work, but we specifically do work to solve practical solutions. So we look at co-housing as an area of research for us. We've been researching for quite a long time, but we are using that research to directly apply it towards to real problems, that being specifically social isolation. This study goes back quite a ways for me. So my introduction to co-housing was in 1992 as a student going from Pullman, Washington, a little rural community in Eastern Washington, to the big city of London, England. And we first heard about co-housing as a lecturer from Denmark came down to visit us at the Architectural Association and shared with us this concept of co-housing, which at the time I naively misunderstood this to be just kind of another housing model that was prevalent in other, in all parts of the world, and including the US. It was only probably a decade later that I realized, oh, that was when it was being introduced to North America for the first time. In 2004, I returned to the University of Washington this time. I returned to school to get a post-professional degree and was fortunate to be awarded a fellowship, a travel fellowship to go to Copenhagen. I was there for a couple months and was really able to in-depth research co-housing as a specific housing model with a particular focus on developing a body of knowledge around the design of the common house. There's a few books, there's not a ton of books about co-housing, but the few books that exist are really related to the development of the design process around and sharing case studies. And there was nothing really to document the design of the common house. And I realized after visiting, and at this point I think I've probably been to about 90 different co-housing communities in Denmark and North America, I've realized the thing that sets co-housing apart from all other multifamily housing models is the design of the common house, the function of the common house as a way to bring people together, to convene people and create sort of the social glue or an active hive of people and presence so that the community life can be like, the common house is the crucible for community life. So did a lot of research, visited over 20 communities while I was there in the couple months, spent time with them, stayed overnight, made lots of meals with every community we visited, and we were able to draw some conclusions. And I say we from the standpoint, my business partner is also my husband and my partner in all that I do in my life and world. So he was also my research assistant when we were in Denmark. And so when we moved back to the US, we started our practice shortly thereafter. And started working on our first co-housing project in 2006. This is Daybreak Co-housing in Portland, Oregon, and while it was very much in the context of the neighborhood, the street out in front, Killingsworth, is a major, I would say major, it's an arterial that has a lot of transit access and connects over to another major street that has their light rail line. So in a very transitional neighborhood had been lower scale, lower density, but has a neighborhood commercial component nearby and sort of the larger scale transit infrastructure to connect it. So looking at this 2/3 of an acre and trying to fit in 30 homes in a way that allowed for open space, light and air, the ability for residents to see one another coming and going, and the activity of the courtyard, creating little spots for people to be able to have just a little bit of personal space and smaller scaled spaces, as well as the larger gathering space out in front of the common house, the central terrace that every home could look out to. And then this is the dining room immediately inside, so that same activity could be brought indoors during the cooler months. A few other projects to share. Adams Creek Co-housing is in Hood River, Oregon. And this is a community that is designed adjacent to a ravine and very wooded, as you can see on the southern portion of the site. There are three buildings and a common house arranged along a pedestrian spine with the common house as the terminus, and then the view of Mount Hood across the river down the road there. This is an in-progress rendering of that project. And then another project that we're currently working on is for Skagit Co-housing up north of Seattle in a small community called Anacortes. While they have a much larger 4-acre site, over half of it was wetlands, and so we were really constrained to just under 2 acres for their development of 30 homes, again, 15 of them in a single building that is multi-story with a common house associated with that, and then 5 buildings that are comprised of townhomes. And these are some renderings from that project. We're waiting for our permits and hoping to start construction. So we're in the construction documentation phase. But these are some renderings to show kind of that open space, the central green where the townhouses are arranged. And then this image is standing sort of at the common house looking back. And this is the other direction, the common house here with the multi-story building in the background. And then a view from the multi-story building out over the wetlands and to the view beyond. So the last co-housing project that I want to share is, hi Crystal. The last project I want to share is co-housing project is related to a very personal project. As I said, these co-housing projects are not just academic research endeavors, but they're applied research. And in this case specifically, it is not just a professional endeavor, but a personal journey. So the Capitol Hill Urban Co-housing Project is where I live. I shared some images at the beginning, but really quickly to show you what the built project looks like. This is a building cross section. It shows that we are on a pedestrian street. My office is actually on the ground floor, and there are 6 homes on the front side of the building, and then a central courtyard that's fairly small but very well used. And then on the back of the building, there is 3 homes overlooking the alley, and then there's our common house, which is at grade with the alley, but also on the same level as the common courtyard. So, as I said, this is the office level on the right-hand side. We're on a pedestrian corridor, fair amount of pedestrian activity going by. And then at the left image, you can see our rooftop farm. This is a pretty important piece of our community, not only just from, right now in terms of having access to fresh produce without having to go to the grocery store, but we also have a partnership with the restaurant that's right next door, actually, in the other image on the right. The storefront just next to us is a farm-to-table restaurant, and they have an agreement with us to farm half of our beds to provide produce for their restaurant. The floor plan looks like this. We are a very small footprint. This is 40 feet along the street frontage here, and the lot is about 113 feet deep. So we've got 4,500 square feet of property. This is our little courtyard that we carved out, but then we have three homes per floor. And those homes are accessed from this central balcony. It's an exterior balcony from which we can see see each other coming and going. This is an image of one of the homes. There are three types of homes, or three floor plans. This is the one I just showed you on the right-hand side, and then this is the largest unit stack that are 1,150 to 1,300 square feet, and then the two units that are on the left-hand side of the screen show 2 and 3 bedroom homes that are about 850 square feet each. So this is one of them, very open plan, light coming in from both sides. This is one of the apartments on the other side of the stack, very different in character. And really we created these as white shells for people to bring in their personalities, their stuff, and inhabit it in the way that they do, and they all feel very, very different. We have this great party that we do once a year where we do a progressive dinner throughout the building, and it's so fun to go into each other's homes and see how differently they feel, even though we know that they're in stacks of very similar apartment layouts. I mentioned the courtyard. These are some views from that. This exterior balcony was a very intentional act for us to make sure that we could see each other coming and going. Unlike traditional co-housing that is more linear in expression, where you have all of the homes looking out into a pedestrian spine, we didn't have the luxury of having that horizontal land. So we took it vertically and have this vertical expression of the circulation. So, you know, on the left-hand side, you can see this is from my home, looking out, you could see the activity of the balconies. And during this time of COVID closures, that has been a really important way. Paulina, who's on this lower balcony, you know, her and her husband might sit out with the neighbors across the way and sit out and talk. And not that we can hear what they're saying, but when this window is open, just hearing their voices in the evening and the laughter is just a welcome sound right now when everyone's being social, you know, so distant physically. This is our courtyard. This is what it looks like in the summertime. We're out there every other night with meals on the deck or in the courtyard. You can see the little kids after the meals are playing around. Sometimes we force the little kids to go play inside the common house because it's just too noisy when they're playing in the courtyard with us. But these are some other images from the building. Because we have such limited square footage of land, we've got 4,500 square feet. We use every bit of it, from the rooftop to the courtyard. This courtyard image is actually from a house concert that we had last year. It turns out that our balconies actually work great for seating for an outdoor house concert as well. And then this is us working in the plant strip out front. So we use every bit of our building to the degree we can to, you know, and this is us preparing a common house meal and the kids preparing a common house meal. So just really engaged multi-generationally and throughout the year with kids in every part of the building. I want to quickly share a couple of examples of how we take our co-housing work and the practice embodied in that work into our other projects. So participatory design is a really big part of co-housing and the way that we do our design process. So we've taken and adapted this co-design process work that we do in the communities, whether it be urban planning work or master planning work, developing design guidelines. And so we've really taken that participatory design and really helped inform other projects that we work on in the community. We are very much a community-based practice. We've also taken the lessons learned from co-housing projects that are very sort of sustainably oriented, much more about resiliency, not just the environmental aspects of sustainability, and applied that to other projects. So my partner Mike has been co-chairing the local eco district for over the last decade or so, we've been working to establish an eco-district. There are not many established eco-districts in North America. It's the idea of sustainability at the neighborhood level. So not looking at individual buildings and how they might be able to achieve you know, a LEED certification or a living building status, but how can the whole neighborhood establish itself? And this was really born out of our own project. We were trying to achieve a pedal certification for the Living Building Challenge, and quickly realized that at 4,500 square feet on a very tight budget, it was impossible for us to achieve energy production and the management of our own wastewater on site. And so really needing to look at the neighborhood scale of how can we do those things as a network of buildings, providing heat and sharing heat. How could we not only have green roofs for stormwater function, but plant those roofs and harvest them and utilize that as a neighborhood resource to reduce the cost of food being transported. And also on the lower right, that's a picture of a biodigester. How do we take food waste and create energy from that? So these are some of the concepts and principles that are in the neighborhood eco-district. This project shows a local project for us in Capitol Hill, a transit-oriented development that we're a part of. We are designing 2 buildings over here as part of 4 buildings that is right over the top of a light rail station. The biggest light rail station, or I should say the biggest, the station that has the greatest capacity of throughput in our system, in our very nascent system. But this project embodies all of those ideas about eco-district. We looked at food production and the biodigester. We looked at the public realm and public amenities like the farmers market, as well as providing affordable housing and a venue for arts to be celebrated and for public performance to be had. And then looking at affordable housing, I just want to share just one project where we try to incorporate the ideas of co-housing into our other work. It's sort of like sustainability. I joke sometimes with our owners, sometimes whether or not they ask for it, our clients get the added benefit of sustainability, sustainable design, and sort of community-oriented resiliency in the work that we do. We sort of sneak it in if they don't know, and it's not an added cost, it's sort of an added value that we provide. So this is a 50-unit affordable housing project in a suburban community called Renton. We've been working for the Renton Housing Authority for 8 years, and this is one of the last projects that we completed for them. Very much taking in ideas of co-housing. This is a site that is bounded on 2 sides by public right-of-way, and on the back side it abuts a right-of-way, a vacated right-of-way that will be developed in conjunction with a large shopping development that's behind us. So really looking at it as sort of 3 public sides, and then you know, what is the internal side of the community feel like. So very much an outward facing focus on the outside, and then the community-oriented face on this in the center. So these are some images. These are sort of the exterior facing building facades and how they relate to the street and public life, and really encourage and integrate this project with the surrounding neighborhood. And then this is how it feels on the courtyard side with the taller multi-story buildings and their outdoor balconies with the opportunity to have these little seating nooks looking out over a community gathering space and a play area back here. And then these are the townhomes that face the same community green. And that's it. So wanted to just leave you with a couple of resources. These I think were provided by Victoria in the pamphlet. As much as we would love to do writing about our work as a practice, sometimes it's hard to actually carve out the time to do the writing that we would like to do. Luckily, we've had a lot of press and interest. So there are outsiders, reporters, and others that are contacting us for interviews and writing about our story. And we think that's really important because for us as a small practice, it's hard for us to iterate fast enough, for us to learn fast enough. And there are other areas of innovation and research that we take part in, but it's helpful when we can collaborate by sharing our story and by sharing the research and the applied work that we've done. It gets the word out there so that others, like you all, can hear about it, to learn about it, and then take some of those ideas and incorporate them, and to see a faster sort of iteration time than the work that we can do alone. And I think that's my last slide.
Wow, thanks, Grace. That was awesome. So I know you're going to be heading out briefly, but we're looking forward to seeing you again at the roundtable.